There we go. All right, welcome everybody to typography. This is DES113 in Mod 5 of 2019 here at Independence University. It's great to see quite a few of you here in the classroom. I hope this will be a good lecture time for us. We might need to make a few little adjustments to the time in the coming weeks, but I hope that will still work out for all of you. Yeah, so we have Aaliyah, Samantha, Tabera, Brittany in here. And I think I saw a few others that kind of came and went, so maybe they'll be able to come back. So, all right. You can't hear anything, Brittany? I don't see your microphone up. I think the rest of you can hear me. So maybe, Brittany, you want to make sure that you are connected to your audio. Oh, that doesn't help if I'm talking to you. Just making sure here that Brittany can get her. The rest of you can hear me, right? Okay. All right, so we hope that Brittany is able to maybe okay, we'll see if that will help her out a little bit. Okay. All right. Well, we better get started, I guess, since it is 5:08 now, and we have a lot to go over today in class. Let's see here. Our agenda today is going to be, we're going to go through some introductions, and then we'll have an overview of the course. We're going to talk a little bit about what you'll be learning in the course, my policies and expectations, and all of the resources that we have available for you and how to be successful. So hopefully that will answer any questions that you guys have, but if you have any questions as we go along or after the different sections of the session here, you are welcome to ask those questions, and I'll be glad to answer what I can. And also, you know, you can unmute yourself and talk if you'd like to. If you'd rather type in the chat, I'll try to keep my eye on that as well. Okay, so one thing here, I just kind of remembered that I need to make a quick little change on my slides, so apologize if we pause things for just a second, and I'll be right back. All right, so we are actually going to have our 2-hour lecture in two little sections. I'll do a break in between, and actually we'll have like a break in our recording as well. So if you're listening to the recording, or if you want to go back to the recording, there's going to be different parts for that. And so in the second part, I will be going over week 1 and doing demonstrations and give you a little bit more details on the discussion, the assignment, and the assessment. All right, Brittany, looks like you are back with us with your mic showing. You can hear me now, okay? Oh, good. All right. Okay. So You are muted now just by default when you come into the room, just to keep background noise and things like that at a minimum. But if there's a question you have or something you want to point out, you feel free to unmute yourself. I'm happy to have you to hear your live voices. It's always good to have that participation in the classroom. So, okay, so how are you guys feeling about this new mod, about learning type? Okay, I want to just introduce myself just a little bit. So my name is Pia Bergholz. Like I said, you are fine to just call me Pia. Some people call me Professor Pia, or you can call me Ms. Bergholz, or anything is fine with me. I'm pretty chill when it comes to titles. I'm originally from Sweden. That's where I was born and raised and have lived off and on. But right now I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I love the outdoors and I love the mountains, so this is a good place for me. I have been a graphic designer for probably over 18 years now, and an instructor for a total of 8 years. I have taught on campus at Utah State University and here at Independence University as well. And along with the outdoors, I also love all things design related. So, and especially typography. This is one of my favorite topics. So I tend to nerd out a little bit, and it's actually been a while since I taught this class. So I am excited, super excited to be teaching it again. Introduce yourself. I hope that you will all introduce yourselves as well in our little introduce yourself section of the class. There is a fun little activity there. We'll jump into it when we take a tour of the classroom, where you pick a font that you feel reflects your type. And it's a fun way to get to know other people. We will be talking a lot about the personalities of fonts in this class. And so this will be a fun way to kind of get started on that. So just quick before we get into the class itself, just a few things about my policies and contact information. My policies as an instructor is basically can be summarized in showing work, showing effort and dedication, and communicating. If, you know, that's kind of what I focus in on. If the students are showing effort and dedication and you communicate with me, then pretty much any other problems that we have along the way can be worked out. Just as a standard policy, I do accept late work 1 week past the due date with a deduction, but if you communicate with me and if we work out something else, we can make different arrangements as well. And I also really believe in reworking your assignments. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, because I feel like it helps your software skills, it helps your design skills, along with improving your grade and making you prepared for working professionally. So we'll talk a little bit more about reworking and resubmitting assignments as we go through my, my expectations. Keeping in touch. You know, because communication is important, you can always email me at my email address, or you can message me through Canvas. I do have a work cell text number that you can use. I will not be answering phone calls and text messages usually late at night and kind of after hours, but it's also kind of a quick and instant way to get in touch with me. So you're welcome to use those. Not that often that I can answer the phone, but a text message is fine. And if you really want to talk on the phone, we can set up a specific time for that. One thing that I will ask, especially if you're emailing or texting me, please introduce yourself with your name and your course number and explain the problems as fully as possible. I sometimes get messages, you know, I don't have all of the students' contact information in that phone, so you know, sometimes I will just get a message from a number that says, I need help. And I have no idea what's going on. Are they stuck on a roof, or what do they need help with? So please introduce yourself. Tell me what class you're in, and what specific things you need help with, if you need help or if you have any concerns. This is a good practicing of your communication skills that will be helpful to you in all aspects of life, including school and your professional settings. So, all right. So now let's talk a little bit more about this class. What will you be learning in this course? Just as a little quiz out there, has anybody watched the first lecture that I listed in the welcome announcement? Has anybody got a chance to watch that yet? Welcome, Amber. Samantha did? Okay, good. Then you have a little bit of an idea of what you'll be learning in this course and what typography is all about, right? Tabera has not yet, and that's okay. Elia watched some of it. Okay, good. So we'll talk more here when I go over resources, the importance of those pre-recorded lectures. But you know, they are a recording, so you can kind of fit them into your own schedule if you like, but they do hold a lot of the theory information and a bunch of the important information for that week. So I do encourage you to watch those first each week before you get started on any of your work. But since this is our first time together in our live session, I wanted just to give you a little bit of an overview of the things that you'll be learning in this course. We're going to talk about why typography is important. And again, that is why you need to watch that pre-recorded theory lecture each week, because it will have a lot of that information in there. If you think about it, probably 99% of the projects that you do as a graphic designer will have some type of text in it, right? You think about it, you know, tell me any kind of type of projects that you think you might be working on, and tell me if you can think of something that doesn't have text. It's probably not very much, right? Advertisements, websites, flyers, packaging, logos, magazine articles, other things. All of those things have text in it, right? So it's going to be super important. Your knowledge of typography is going to be really, really important to the success of your projects. And I find that a lot of students, some students don't really think much about type. Other people have thought about and looked at type for a long time and are super interested in it. Maybe Brittany and Samantha, both of you were really excited about it. So hi, Kevin, welcome to the class. So maybe you have thought about some of these things, but it seems like every time I teach this class, I have students that go like, I haven't really thought too much about typography, so I didn't really think it was that important. So there is a video in the announcements that talks about the importance of typography. And I hope that sometime between now and our next live session, you have a chance to watch that, because we're going to talk a little bit more about it next week. Yeah, it'll be great to kind of hear your thoughts and comments on the things that they talk about in that video. But the fundamentals of typography is going to be, because text is so much a part of graphic design, is going to be something that you will be using in every single class that you have from now on. There might be maybe 1 or 2 courses where you are not going to use text, but not very many. I would probably say that you're going to be using text in every single design class that you have from here on. And so maybe not the photography class if you're taking that, if you're bachelor students, but other than that, okay? So the things that you're learning in this class, you're going to be applying over and over and over again. And it's something that you have to practice. You have to kind of get used to some of the things that we'll be talking about this class before it becomes second nature to you. But as you keep working on it, and as your instructors will keep giving you feedback on the way that you're using your typography and the choices that you're making in your typography in the coming classes, after a while, it'll probably start feeling like second nature to you. So I recommend that you save links and resources from this class someplace handy. You can always go back to this course in your list of courses and find the resources, but it might be nice to have it a little bit closer at hand because, like I said, you're going to be using it in every single class from now on. We're going to go over some technical skills. That is including some type history, and you'll be learning, if you're doing your daily checkpoints, you're going to be learning a lot about type history in those daily checkpoints. You're going to be learning some type terminology. There are certain words and identifications and things like that that go along with type. It's kind of nerdy in a sense, you know, kind of design nerdy, but that is, you know, that kind of goes with the flow, and it makes you be able to communicate with other designers and understand things about type and design better if you understand that terminology. You also need to learn the terminology and what things are called to be able to use your tools effectively in Illustrator and InDesign. That's what we're going to be, you can use type in Photoshop too, of course, but in this class we're going to be using exclusively Illustrator and InDesign. And we're also going to go over some type rules. So you might think, huh, there's rules to type? Yes, there is. And we're going to go over some of those rules and directions and also why. And the why, I think, is important because if you don't understand the why, you don't know how to apply those rules properly, and you don't know when maybe you have to look at one rule over another rule or even break the rules like we'll be talking about as well. So speaking of that, of the software tools that you'll be using, if you feel like you need some refreshers in Illustrator or InDesign, there are some, there's a link to some help in on Adobe's website where you can go back and kind of pinpoint specific tools or go through some tutorials and things like that. And that's all in the announcement. How about those of you that are here? Do you feel comfortable with Illustrator and InDesign? You should have taken DES113 and DES105 before you take this class. So hopefully, you know, it's something that you, okay, well, great, Kevin, then you are in a good spot here. Okay, have you not taken the InDesign class, or you just don't, you just feel a little new at it? So yeah, you should have been scheduled for DS105 before you take this class, but if for some reason you haven't gone through that successfully, there, okay, you had a little bit. Okay, we're going to be doing some refreshers. So hopefully that will help you get more practice in InDesign as well. Okay, so we'll also be practicing different design skills. So we're going to talk about using typography in visual communication and how your typography choices either help or hinder your message in your design. So we're going to talk about different font choices, seeing how those font choices affect different words and letters. We're going to talk about creating emphasis and hierarchy with type, and applying the design principles. We've all talked about those, right? The CRAP principles. You guys remember what they stand for? And we're going to talk about how to apply those principles to your type decisions. Okay, now, yeah, so that's going to be pretty fun. We're also going to, we have some different projects that you guys will be working on in the different weeks. And here is a little bit of a topic overview, just so that you kind of can get an overview of the course. In week 1, we're just going to be talking about the basics, the value of classic fonts. If you have already taken a peek at our discussion this week, that's what it's about. Our assignment this week is going to be looking at letters as shapes and creating something fun with that. In the assessment, we're going to be going over type tools and specifications. Next week, we'll talk more about choosing fonts. We're going to go do a little font shopping and choosing different fonts for different jobs. We're going to look at different font categories and the best uses for those. And then there is a midterm quiz covering weeks 1 and 2 theory. And then in week 3, we're going to start getting more into setting type and what that means. We're going to talk about research, evaluating type, and critiquing type. And then we're going to find ways to create hierarchy through type choices, and also test your typesetting decisions in the assessment. And then for week 4, we're going to go into a little bit more creative typography. But we're also going to talk about font usage and copyrights, and designing with type, and the final quiz, which will kind of be a little bit more on what not to do than what to do as you're going through those different type rules. So let's take a look at our classroom and the resources for this class, so that I can make sure that everybody knows where to find things, and we'll take a little look at each one of the weeks that way too. Okay, let me just switch my sharing here to this other screen. All right, can you guys all see my screen in the classroom? Okay, great. All right, good deal. And maybe first, before we go in here, let's just see what are you guys expecting from this class? What are you wanting from this class? What are you wondering about in this class? Any of those kind of things? We'll see if we're going to be covering it. Some we might cover, some we might not. You guys can just type that in as we go through things, okay, if something comes up. Tabara's looking forward to playing with different fonts, and Kevin's just open for whatever. So yeah, hopefully we'll be covering the kind of things that you guys are wanting or expecting. And if there's things outside of this that you're wondering about, like I said, I'm a self-proclaimed type nerd, so talk to me about it and I'll be probably talking your ear off. You're talking about learning how to type, like typing on a keyboard? Is that what you're wondering about, Brittany? Because that we're not going over. Okay, we are going to learn on how to use, we're going to learn how to use different fonts for different occasions. So in other words, you know, how to find fonts, how to decide which fonts to use, that kind of stuff. But not actually typing on a keyboard. That's a skill that I hope you are already, you know, that we're hoping that you're already familiar with because you are in an online classroom, right? So those are just kind of basic things. Okay, all right, good. I can tell because you're typing in the chat, so. Okay, awesome. All right, well, let's get into the classroom here and let's talk a little, let's go over a few specific places that I want to make sure you guys are aware of and that you know where to find things. So first of all, as you are here, we also want to double check, you know, the live sessions and recordings button is right here. This is probably one of the most important pages in the classroom that you need to be able to access. It has our live session dates and times and our multi-session dates and times right here, and the link to the live session. And then right here will be a list of all of the recorded sessions. And you will see, notice right now, right, that there is a lecture 1 already listed for each week. That is that theory lecture that I've been talking about, and it's pre-recorded. So it's not a live lecture, but it has like the meat and potatoes of the course are in these lectures right here. So in our live sessions, I'll be building on the information that you learn in these pre-recorded sessions. And so if the things that I'm talking about and some of the things that I'm going over here in class sounds a little cryptic to you or doesn't really make sense, it's because I'm building on the information that's in here. And we'll go over here in just a few minutes to kind of things that will be covered in these recorded sessions. And then after our live session, the recording will be uploaded and posted right here. So, and like I mentioned right in the beginning, for those of you who weren't right here in the beginning, I'm dividing it up in 2 parts so that it breaks it up a little bit. I feel like 2 hours of lecture is pretty long to sit through. So I'm thinking, you know, those of you that are watching the recording, you probably want to maybe break it up a little bit. And so I hope that will help. Then we also have on our homepage here the course media, which is here on the shortcuts called readings and videos. So in here in the course media, you will see a lecture also recorded right here. And here it's called the pre-recorded lecture. That's the same one. It's the same one that you just saw on the live lecture page. So I just don't want you to get confused, but it's listed over here in the course media as well, along with other things like articles and downloads and lynda.com videos and all that other kind of great stuff that's in here. Okay. Then the other thing that I want to bring to your attention is our course information page right here, which I think is pretty good. Are you guys familiar with this? This one just kind of gives you a description of the course, the objectives, the course objectives, and it lists all of these different learning objectives that will be broken up throughout the different weeks. And as we scroll down, you'll have a little bit of, the hours that you can expect to spend, a little bit of a topical outline of what we're going to be discussing each week, and the different tasks for each week. So this is a pretty good overview of the course in general, I think, and I think it's pretty helpful. Have you guys, do you guys usually take a look at this course information page when you get into a new class? I think that's a good way to kind of find out what's going on. Yeah, I'm gonna be going over things in our live session here too, but you know, I just think it's a good practice. You know, as soon as that class is open to you, you can kind of go in and take a look at that before you get started. We also, of course, have the instructor page right here, where you will find all of that contact information that I talked about here as well. And then a little bit of other background information also. Okay, all right, and then another thing that I really want to point out, and that is the announcements, because I put a lot of stuff in the announcements because I have a lot of resources and I have a lot of extra things that are not included in the classroom. The only place I can put them is in the announcements, and so I put a bunch of stuff in here that I think can be helpful to you. So I hope that you go through and use the announcements as kind of another resource place. So, so the welcome message is in here, and each week I'll be posting a new welcome message for that week. And in that, I will also post a link to that pre-recorded theory lecture. So if you don't want to dig in and try to find it on the live session page or on the media page, just check the announcements. And you can pretty much, I'm going to be posting links to most of the things that you need in the announcements, so you can actually just get them through the announcements as well. I've also posted here that video that we talked about, the art of typography. And I hope that you will take a look and, you know, take a chance to watch this video, like I said, before our next live session, so we can talk a little bit more about the things that that they're going over in here, and how much influence type has, not only in graphic design, but in just our world as a whole. It's really interesting. And then I have also posted a bunch of other helpful things. You'll see all of these listed with how-to. There's an how-to on accessing the Student Success Center, accessing Lynda videos, how to embed an image in your discussions, how to download the lectures and watch them offline. These are all little tiny videos, by the way, that I've put together. How to see your grade feedback in the comments. And then there's also some other helpful stuff videos, like using a Chrome Grammarly plugin. This right here has those tutorials that I talked about. If you need any kind of refreshing on Illustrator, InDesign specifically, they are here. We'll go visit those a little bit later. But that's in there. There is some suggestions and ideas on how, a little recipe for successful assignments, some ideas on how to be successful in the class, our class coach schedule, and also another little video that kind of just takes you through some of the things that I showed you here, but some other things as well about, you know, what's where in my design classes, if anybody is lost for that. So keep, and I'll be continuing to post a lot of good information, and I'll post the YouTube versions of our lecture recordings here in the announcements. So yeah, so like have the announcements be your first go-to if you're wondering about anything. Because I list a lot of things that that you can take advantage of here, and you know, sometimes you have to scroll clear back to the beginning to get to those how-to videos, but yeah, hopefully you have your settings, your Canvas settings, so that you will be notified when a new announcement is listed. Do you have that? Because then you will always know as soon as the new lecture recordings are up and all of that stuff. Okay, good. All right. So now let's just take a real quick tour of the weeks here a little bit. In week 1, you have shortcuts to all the weeks right here. You can also, of course, find everything in the modules. If you just go to the modules and you kind of go down here and scroll down, it will have the topic for each week and the discussions, the assignments, and the assessments listed here. And this is where you will find that introduce yourself discussion post, talking about what type you are. And so you can see here, I have chosen Optima. That's one of my favorite fonts. And I feel like the look and the feel of this font kind of represents who I am. Kind of simple and clean, little classic, but also a little bit of a modern look to it. So I look forward to seeing you guys post, you know, put a font in here that you feel represent you. And if you wonder how to put this image in here so that you can see it, because you might not have access to the font in Canvas to be able to type your name up in there, go ahead and look at that announcement that shows the video on how to embed an image into your discussion post. Okay, so look forward to seeing that. All right, so each week we have an overview where the learning objectives of that week will be listed. There's a little bit of an introduction to that week. We usually have, you know, a little video that relates to type and kind of the quote of the week. And then you have links to all of the different assignments for that week. And so we'll be going through these each week here in our live session as well. As you can see in this week, our discussion is on the value of classic fonts. Keep in mind that there is background information in each assignment that's you know, gives you a little bit of background to what you need to talk about. Remember in the discussions and in the assignments to read through the prompts carefully so that you know what's expected of you for each one of these assignments. And then under the benchmark section, there's always samples listed here that show grade A work. So you can kind of take a look at this. And so if you're wondering, you know, if you're thinking, I'm not even sure what this assignment is about and what we're supposed to do, then you can always take a look at the benchmarks, and that kind of gives you an idea. But even better than the benchmarks is to watch the live session, because I go through and I explain details about all the assignments, and I go through demos on the projects that you'll be doing and all of that kind of stuff here in class as well. So a lot of these instructions and stuff can be a little bit hard to understand when they're just written. This is all design stuff, right? So it's visual stuff. So it's much easier to explain in word and demonstration than it is in just in text. So please make sure that you check out the live session for each week so that you get anything clarified that's in here. All right, now, and you can see here in the discussion there is a little video in here as well. Okay, so let's see here now. All right, my slides here are a little bit off topic here. I tend to wonder when I start talking, so, but I want to make sure we go over everything, so I need to follow along with these slides. So, the live Zoom sessions, just to clarify, we have our live lecture sessions that have the overviews, the critiques, demos, and details, like I just mentioned. They are the ones that we're going to be having right here in the Zoom room on Tuesdays. Today it's 5 to 7, but we're going to have to change these to 4 to 6 from now on. I hope that's going to be okay with everyone. Will those of you that are here now, will that make a difference in your attendance? And if so, maybe I'll try to keep it at 5. I just ended up overlapping some things that I had scheduled. Kevin says that's fine. Okay, how about the rest of you? Are a little tougher for Amber? Okay, well, remember that the current time is best for you too, Tabara? Okay. Well, maybe I'll just try to change the rest of it then. So let's just keep it from 5 to 7. And I will be trying to fix my other overlap then. Because I do like it when we're able to have some live discussion and participation here in the class. So, so let's ignore the changing in week 2 to 4. Let's keep it at 5 to 7, and I'll just fix the slide before I send things out. Okay, yep, and I love having you in the live sessions. So, so let's just keep it from 5 to 7. The recordings, though, will be listed on the live session page and in the announcement. So if for some reason you're not able to make it, it's still there. All the information will still be there. We also have live times in the multi-session. So on Thursdays from 5 to 7 and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and this is all Mountain Time, of course, I will be sometimes going over additional tips if we didn't have enough time in the Tuesday class, show other techniques that you could use kind of above and beyond the required stuff, and of course be here for one-on-one help if you need it. Now the pre-recorded theory lectures, like I mentioned, are required, and those are super important that you watch as well, or you're not going to be getting the things that you need to out of this class. It will be like you know, if you attend the live sessions, but you don't watch the pre-recorded ones, you're only kind of getting half. You know, you might still be able to get through the assignments and stuff, okay? But you won't have that knowledge and that understanding that you will need moving forward. And just to show you kind of what's going to be covered in those pre-recorded sessions each week, you'll see in week 1, talking about what is typography and why it's important, how it's used in graphic design. And then it's covering the type foundations and terminology like type anatomy, type sizing, type classifications. Oh, that's a funny spelling. There's a 9 in there for some reason. Okay, so typos, types as shapes, basic type terminology, and basic Adobe typography tools. Okay. In week 2, we're going to talk more about choosing the right font for different projects. There's a bit of a review from week 1 about font categories, and continue talking about font families and font styles. There is an introduction to Adobe Typekit, talking about readability and legibility, the color of text, and we will start going over the rules of typography. Specifically talking about combining fonts and capitals and lowercase. And then in week 3, we're going to move more towards organizing text. And in the pre-recorded lecture theory there, they're going to be continuing the rules of type. There's 19 in total. Going over some common rookie mistakes that designers do. Organizing text and creating hierarchy, some of the finer details like special characters and how to use those, and also how to design monograms. And then breaking the rules is the topic for week 4, okay? So we now learned all of those. By this time, you hopefully have an understanding of all the rules. So then we're going to talk about situations and instances where maybe it's valid to break those rules. Some more of those rookie mistakes that people sometimes make: combining type and images, working with grids. There are some demonstrations on type on a path and distorting type, talking more about hand lettering and font design. That will wrap up the class. But as you see, all of these topics and all of this information, this is not stuff that I'm going to be going over again in detail in the live sessions. So you have to watch the pre-recorded sessions to get this information. Okay? Does that make sense to everyone? So far? So far, so good? All right. Okay. So there's going to be 3 design projects. In week 1, you're going to be doing a type face illustration that we'll talk about here in our next hour. In week 3, you're going to be creating a wedding invitation with a monogram on it as well. And in week 4, you're going to be creating a typographic poster. And one thing that many students feel a little bit intimidated by, I think, sometimes, but I just want to put it out there right away just so that you know, to answer any questions about this beforehand. For every single one of the assignments in this class, we're only going to use type, only letter forms and text. No images, no icons, no illustrations. What do you guys think about that? Cool, interesting, okay. Awesome. I'm glad you guys have positive attitudes about this. Sometimes people go and like, oh my gosh, that's going to be so hard, or there is no way that you can create something cool if I don't get to have some images and some illustrations in there. But you guys just wait and see. Even this first project that we're going to do this week, I think you'll be surprised at how much fun you can have just with letter forms and text. Yeah, it's going to be funky for sure. It's going to be really cool. All right. Okay. So now it looks like we are moving on here in time. So let's go through policies and expectations, resources, and help for this class, just to make sure everybody is on the same page and you know what's expected. So the required lectures. There's several slides about this, but it's just because it's so important. Again, reiterating, they're posted in the course media on the live session page. We went over where to find that in the classroom. I recommend that you take notes when you go through these lectures. And you can always stop the recording and then follow along on your computer. So I think for any kind of demonstrations or anything like that, if you watch that on a separate device, like your tablet or another computer if you have it, even your phone if you need to, and then use your laptop to have a document open where you can put down notes or follow along with the demos of the assignments or whatever it is, that's usually a great way, I think, to get the most out of the lectures. If you start shortcutting yourself and thinking, I don't have time to watch that, I'm just going to go right to the assignment and I'll figure it out, most of the time it's going to leave you shortchanged. And I can usually tell when people have watched the live sessions and when they haven't. So we have the live sessions, 1 per week, and they're recorded in 2 parts like I talked about. Part 1 will have, this week we have the intro, next week we'll have a little bit of a review and critiques. And then in part 2, we'll do the weekly overview and demonstrations and all of that stuff. And I'll be building on the information of lecture 1 or the theory lecture each week. Okay, any questions about the expectations of the lectures? Okay, great. For the discussions, remember there are clarifications and tips in the live sessions. I'll be going over that each week. Make sure you read the background information and instructions carefully and check out the benchmarks for examples. Your first post must be in by midnight, basically, Mountain Time on Wednesday. And then for full credit, you need to have two or more follow-up posts by the end of the week. Okay, the other thing about discussions that I want to bring up is a problem that we've seen off and on in the courses, and that is plagiarism. And I'll be checking on this when I grade your discussions. And, you know, you are expected to do research in your discussions, but you should, you know, use that as a background for your opinion, but you want to summarize your information in your own words. So you don't want to copy and paste large sections of something you find on the internet or on a website and then just put it into your discussion. That is considered plagiarism. If you want to use, you know, a little quote, maybe, you know, a sentence or two, maybe as much as a paragraph at the very most, to kind of solidify your point or back up your point in the that you're putting in the discussion, you may do so, but you have to use quotation marks and you have to use an in-text citation for that. You also need to, I'm not too worried about APA formatting as far as like putting a header on your post and all of that kind of stuff. I think that feels kind of awkward. But you do need to put APA formatting for your references, excuse me, including any images that you're posting. Okay, I need to get a drink. Hold on 1 second. All right, I'm back. I think I might be starting to get a little bit of a cold here, so my throat is getting a little scratchy, so hope I can keep from coughing. All right, so really the most important thing within the discussions is that you're learning from your research. And if you just copy and paste things and you're not thinking it over and kind of rewording it in your own words, then I don't feel like you're really learning from it. So, so I'm going to be checking on that. Please make sure that you are always summarizing any information in your own words. And of course, not copying from any fellow students. All right, so expectations for the assignments. Again, there will be demonstrations, tips, and sometimes additional options in the live sessions. So if you're watching the live sessions, sometimes I will give you alternate options. And the only way to take advantage of those is through the live sessions. You are not going to, they're not going to be listed in the course. And so that's kind of a little Easter egg surprise or whatever they're called for those of you that watch the live sessions. Make sure that you read the background information and instructions carefully and check out those benchmarks for examples of A work. When it comes to the assignments, I really encourage you to resubmit your projects after you have received a grade. If you received a low grade on it, I will give you feedback in there in the rubric and in the comments. I will also have critiques of some of the projects where you'll get feedback. And so you are, I'm encouraging you to improve your projects and resubmit them for a regrade. This is really the way to learn and grow as a designer. But I only do one regrade per assignment, otherwise it can get a little bit too crazy. So make sure that if you're doing a resubmission, you fix all of the things that, you know, had a problem or you had an issue with, because you'll only get one chance for a regrade. The assessments are tests, okay? So there is not going to be step-by-step demonstrations in the pre-recorded sessions or in the live sessions, but the information that you need to know to complete the assessments, sometimes the quizzes, are in these lectures. So you want to make sure that you watch those. But I will also be going over, giving you clarifications and tips and things like that in the live session as well. And if we don't have time during the live session today, since this always seems to run a little long because of the introductions and everything, I will be doing a little bit of a, giving you some more information on that in the multi-session this week. So the coaches, they can't really help you with too much of the things in the assessments. Like I said, of course, some of them are quizzes. And if they're projects, then they are a little bit similar to the quizzes. They are there to kind of check your understanding and knowledge of the materials that were listed in the class. So, the coaches can maybe help you save a file or something like that, but they're not going to be able to help you with the actual steps of the assessment. Daily checkpoints, of course, 4 per week is required for 100 points. But the other 3 are great to include in there as well. They can give you extra credit. They can give you a buffer if you end up being late or something like that on an assignment. And there's also some really good information on typography in there. And sometimes I would, save some of the links that are in there, like we talked about, for future reference so that you can go back to it later on. Deadlines. So the assignments and assessments and discussions, like we talked about, are due at midnight. If something comes up that keeps you from submitting that, you need to contact me before the project is due, and then we can make some arrangements. What I basically think is, if you look at the coursework and the things that you're doing in this class as if it was your job, you're going to be kind of knowing what to do, right? Because if it's your job, you're either going to be on time or you're going to let somebody know. And there is a lot of help and resources available. There is the weekly media videos on the media page that is kind of above and beyond the information that you get in that pre-recorded session. I would say watch the pre-recorded session first. If you don't feel like you're really grasping the concepts, then you can go to the additional media and information in there. Then there's also the multi-sessions for demonstrations and help in Thursdays and Fridays, right? And there's also additional multi-session times from the other 100 level classes. Are you guys, do you guys know about that? You're familiar with that? You know that if you're in here, if we go to the announcements, down here at the bottom, and I probably should have showed you this as we went through the assignments, but right here, the 100 level multi-session schedule for Mod 5, open up this PDF right here, and you'll see a schedule. Now, everybody, all of these instructors may not have taught this typography course, but most of them have. And especially if it's just something like, oh, I don't know how to use this in Illustrator, or how do I get this to work? Any of our instructors here should be able to help you. And you got kind of the schedule here, links to their Zoom rooms. So you can see there's a ton on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and even some on Saturday. So, and some more on in the evening hours. So, you know, take advantage of just popping in there and getting help. It's almost like the Student Success Center, but with our instructors. But we do also have a class coach. and we have the Student Success Center. Our class coach is DJ Smith, and her schedule each week is listed in the announcements. Right here you can see her week 1 schedule. You can email her to set up a time. And well, I'm not sure why that image is not showing up here. So I'm glad I checked that. I'll have to go in here. There's a schedule here that should be showing up when she is in the Student Success Center. But you don't have to wait for the times that she's in the Student Success Center to get help there. This other announcement right here, oh, and that isn't working either. All right, I guess I better double check and figure this out. But this other announcement down here on the how-to will show you that as well. Here, how to access the Student Success Center. That other link's supposed to go to this post right here. Anyway, you can go to them any of the times that are listed in the Student Success Center. And you can see if you go to the hours of operation and the graphic arts, you can see the times that they are open. And you can go through to the Student Success Center at any of these times and talk to any of the coaches. But if you want to set up a specific appointment, DJ is the coach for our class. So, and she is awesome. I'm glad that you have worked with her before. Because yeah, she is really great. And if you fall behind or if you're struggling with something, don't sit and try to, struggle with it alone. Just go here to the Student Success Center. You're paying these guys' wages with your tuition. So, make good use out of it, right? Okay. Let's see, where were we now? So yeah, and then of course, like I said, there's a lot of other help that I'll be posting in the announcements off and on. And also those links, the Adobe Refresher help is really helpful. So just to give you an idea of how that works, each one of the, you can go to that direct link to Illustrator or InDesign. And right here, if you just go to the tutorials, there are just basic tutorials right here in the beginners that can help you out. You can see they're pretty short and easy. You can also go to the user guide, which I think is really helpful, where you can just kind of go through these different topics and find, like under type here, for example. So there's all these different topics under type if you're wondering about that and need a little bit of a refresher. So the InDesign one might be one that, that you want to check out as well then if you're, feel a little rusty or feel like you didn't really get a good grasp of it when you took that class. And if you want to go through any of the lynda.com videos, there is a video on how to access lynda.com in the announcements as well. Well, I'll be glad if you feel like you're lost to finding any of these resources. I'll be glad to help you in the multi-session also. So just come in there and I'll help you get into whatever you need. All right, so I think we went over what was listed in the announcements here. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about how to be successful in this class. And I think one of the, like I mentioned earlier, one of the best tricks to being successful is to think of your instructor as your client or your boss, because that's going to affect the way that you do your research, or in other words, watching the lectures, reading the instructions, worrying about the deadline, submitting files, communication, and responding to feedback. If I was your boss and I gave you a project to do and you had questions, would you just kind of assume given the answer, or would you ask questions, right? Would you make sure that you understood what the project was all about before you got started on it? If I sent you instructions, would you read those instructions real carefully if I was your boss, or if I was your client? And if we had decided on a deadline, and how would you feel about that? Would you work your hardest to get it done? And if something happened so that you couldn't, what would you do? You'd probably get in touch with me and say, hey, sorry, that deadline's going to be a little bit of a problem for me right now. So what can we work out, right? You wouldn't just not have anything or not show up, right? You would be careful to make sure that you gave me the correct files. And if I had feedback for you and said, hey, this needs to be changed, or this isn't working, you'd probably make those changes, right? So thinking of your instructor as your client or your boss, especially in the design classes, is really going to get you in that mindset that you need to have as a professional designer. So this is good practice time for that. So just in short, there's lots of different things that you can do to be successful in this class. And in Thursday's multi-sessions, I will be going over some of those tips that I listed in the announcements, that recipe for success, a little bit more in detail, and I'll record that and post that in the announcements as well, because I don't think we'll have time for it here tonight. But this is just kind of it in a nutshell. If you do the daily checkpoints, at least 4, then that you will get, your points. You will get some extra points there. Checking the announcements 3 to 4 times a week so that you know if there's additional things going on there or changes or anything like that. Watching all the lecture videos. That is probably the most important thing you can do to be successful in this class. And follow along with the demos, using the course media resources. Use the multi-sessions. Come in and see me if you have questions or you want me to go over any projects. Engage in the discussion. And watch and heed critique and feedback. And like I mentioned, we're going to have some class critiques as part of our live sessions. And then revise your low scoring assignments. And then communicate with me if you have questions or fall behind. Do these all make sense to you guys? All right, so just the short version, watch the live sessions, contact me if you fall behind. Okay, that's the short version of it all. All right, any other questions before we take just probably only a few seconds of a break here so that we can get going on week 1? No questions. All right, great. Well, let's take just a quick little break and then we'll dig right into week 1. Okay, I'll be back here. I'm just gonna, take another little sip of my water and we'll be starting right away. But I am going to break up the recording. So if you're watching the recording, week 1 will, and the demos for week 1 will be in the part 2. All right.